It's a good thing we don't have to have quorum because I don't think we'd have it. But we'll start the meeting. Yay, everybody remembered to come here. That's something. That's a good start. Maybe. Well, everybody that's here remembered to come. So first thing, we'll do consideration and call for consensus on the agenda. A couple comments that I have on that. Actually, one comment and then an announcement. Although there's no scheduled presentation of Meg's summary, the one that she sent around about the the school district long-term capital plan, it's an important backdrop for both today and subsequent meetings probably. So just to highlight that.
The important thing is what else is going on and what might happen next after middle school.
Yeah, okay. So, any comments, questions on the agenda? Okay, call for consensus. Adoption of the agenda as written. That would be a green one if you like it, or a blue one if you don't really care, but you're not against it. It's the one I sent out. It's 2.0, Agenda 2.0, the last one I sent out, which I didn't actually have to send it out today. Maybe you're cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're green. We got it. All right. Next item, consideration and call for consensus on the TCD guidelines for facilitation. Does anybody need a copy of that? I sent them out. Okay.
This is something else.
That's, yeah, I don't know why that came, that's nothing new. That's your ground rules and your guidelines for observer watchmajiggis. And when you have, when they get to the end, you want to give a couple copies to the observers, please.
They were coming around, so I don't know.
Oh, if you didn't already have them.
If you already have the guidelines, this is just if you didn't print them out yourself, or I haven't changed them, although I'm going to modify them. Hi. Okay. So these facilitation guidelines are there any extras for the observers? Can you all share or something? Okay. So these are basically so that we have a shared understanding of how you would like me to help you in these meetings. We've had a bit of trouble in the past in terms of, especially when we get to the end of the time allotted for an item, particularly in discussion, and there hasn't been a shared understanding of what happens at that point. So these guidelines are mainly to address that sort of thing. There are a couple modifications I would make, but and I'll just share those. Those are for item number 5 and number 6. I thought of these after I sent it out, but didn't want to send out a whole new thing. Number 5, I would add another sentence after it. She, that is me, will give the group notice when only 3 minutes are remaining for discussion by raising an orange card. And then also in number 6, I would just add any topics going over time. So those modifications for this group. So if these guidelines are approved, the group would still be able to make changes within the framework. So that if the agenda is approved, as this one has been, and you would like to make, as a group, like to make the changes after that, then there will be that 4-minute time period, or more if you want, if you see that it's going to go, for extending the time. So, any questions or comments? Jimmy?
I think our experience to date has demonstrated the necessity of something like this. And I appreciate very much the fact that Linda will take control of the meeting, and when the time frame is up, she will tell us and we will move on. And I emphasize on.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, Okay, so hearing none, we'll call for consensus on the guidelines for facilitation, the TCV guidelines for facilitation. In favor, green card, don't care, blue card. Dorothy, did you also have a question?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And Steve? Green. Okay. I'm seeing green then. Okay, great. We have 5 minutes extra. I should never say that because. Right. Okay, now we get the fun bits. Now it comes time to create a comprehensive list for this team of all the options we can think of or have heard of, possibilities for the middle school facility. There's 15 minutes for this one because I think people have a pretty good idea, and Lauren's put some stuff out about that as well, and lists, and so now Jeff, is this something you're going to be able to type into? Okay, so Jeff will, there's a document there, and we'll just list them, just one after the other, of the possible options. Now, just to note, there's no voting for or ranking of these yet. This is simply the list of options. Everything, a comprehensive list. Everything that the team has been asked to consider or has come up with within itself. Did you still have a question?
I hope that I got one of these at everyone's spot. So this is a printed copy of the thing I sent last week. And I just want to be sure everyone has it.
And the second page has some. The second page has some options listed already. Okay. So do you have this, Jeff? So you can just start entering these things under options. And that should just wrap text. Okay. So taking a look at this list, I mean, if Jeff is going to go ahead and put that in there now, are there any additional options that you can think of, and including, you know, the observers? If you have anything that you would like to add to this list once it gets up there, please go ahead, Dick.
Okay, I think you're answering my question. Your question is that the options that Lauren put together, that's the beginning point that we're looking at.
I just didn't have that, so I just created blank.
It's pretty inclusive, so I guess the only comment, yeah, there's some variations within those options, but I think we can always massage as we discuss those individually.
And Dorothy?
I would like to see us not restrict our options to just these listed. So that I would hope there would be one that says other.
Okay, today what we're going for, Dorothy, is actually a list. Not just this one, but a list. Everybody gets their ideas out here now. And we create a list. At the end of this item, we will have a list that includes everything that anybody can think of. Now, it's not that if somehow the group comes out with some combination of these that everybody says, wow, why didn't we think of that earlier? Well, it can go on the list. Yeah. Okay, does that help out answer your question? Okay, Dick.
Just since you, just for conversation, under B, that build new on Mo Nesbitt property, I think I would suggest it'd be a B1, B2. B1 would be a prototypical building, which is, I think, was one of the key things about the Rollins proposal, and the fact that we take somewhere like Cheney's middle school and pop it down on some acreage. And then B2 would be just new. In other words, really newly designed.
Okay.
So I think
Did you
that's,
catch that?
I think that was prototypical, the critical point of the Robbins proposal.
Okay, thanks, Dick. You got that one, Joe? I don't have my list, so you don't have this. Joanne?
I have something I want to add, but then also to add on what Dick just said. I think many of the new options could also have that either or prototype versus newly designed project. I think it might be worth saying new on another site. We had this new on the LDS site, but it could be any site that's in town that the school district doesn't currently own right now. And then another option that I heard from some public folks a couple weeks ago was building, why not build new at the property across from Capitol? And I'm, across from the high school that was purchased a few years ago. I understand it's too small for everything, but some things could be shared, like playing fields or such could be shared across the street with the Valley View high school site also. So I think it's possible that the new middle school could be built on that site across from Capitol. Also, there were a couple locations that the previous bond group or facilities planning committee looked at, which was which is the site next to Valley View, but there was also, or between the high school and Valley View, but we also looked at the site just east of Valley View on Fenning Road. There's soccer fields there. That's another, it wasn't the one selected by the group last time, but I think if we're looking at other site options, that may be one to look at as well. Does that make sense? So currently owned property east of Valley View. Thank you.
Steve?
Could we, I guess maybe a new question actually, could we, instead of using the word prototypical, because it's just not the proper use of the dictionary definition of that word, could we use, say, site adapted plans versus original plans? Not say prototypical anymore because it's confusing.
I'm just using,
I know.
just using the language of the architects, that's all.
Okay.
Right there. So did you catch that? We want to make sure that Jeff can catch all this, because this is our only record, and you're going to use it in the plan. Got it? Okay.
I'm a
Lauren?
cookie cutter.
Cookie cutter, yeah, that's good.
So 14's not correct. It's not east of Fenning, it's east of Valley View along Fenning. It's on the
Oh, the
Valley View
soccer.
site.
It's a soccer, it's all open field.
But just to follow the matter of the word prototype, and as site, is that the same thing as a site adaptation plan? Because that's a standard term, right, that NAC gave us, a site adaptation that other people might not have heard about that means
Okay, so do you have an answer to that question?
specifically.
That'd be great.
I agree with what Steve's saying. If we had a prototype, it would be one that we would maybe design for use several times in the school district. And he's, I think, more correct in saying we're looking at taking a design from another school and adapting it for our site in the Rollins plan. So I'd agree with his suggestion to change that term.
It's called site adapt. That's, I'm really asking, is it called?
You call it a
I know,
site
but
adapted?
NAC
Okay, you're going to use the cards, thank you. Paul, do you have a, no, he doesn't have. Okay, does anybody have Molly and then Jimmy?
I have a question, and that is, I'm not familiar, or could someone speak to H, the portable city? I'm not really sure if we talked about that, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, does somebody have an answer to Molly's question? Michelle?
Portable city would be to lay down enough portables for school to exist on the existing property. And not build, just buy a bunch of portables.
So what does that make, what difference is that between that and retaining Morgan Middle School and doing bare minimum?
We wouldn't be necessarily even using the parts of the building. We would just be laying down portable classrooms.
Okay, did that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay, and then Jimmy, you also had a question?
Joanna, you were talking about C2, and I didn't understand what you meant to do on C2, because as it's listed here, it's split the grades with the elementary.
The difference between what I was mentioning and C2 is C2 would not remodel Morgan Middle School. It would just build the new middle school across from Capitol.
So a completely new idea.
Yeah, thank you.
So that would be C3? Yeah, C3 for you? Yes.
No,
sorry.
B.
Okay,
B, a variant of B. There are a bunch of variants of B.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Mike, you had a comment.
So it's been resolved.
Been resolved? Oh, that was easy. Any other questions or comments? We'll take a few minutes here. We've got plenty of time. Okay, Mike, you have a question?
I think it's been said, but I'm not sure it's been reflected out there. Are we going to change number 3 to instead say, no, sorry, hang on. Number 2, are we going to instead say build new at a non-school site or something like that? Are we going to limit it to Mo Nesbitt, or are we opening it up to other properties that might be available? I think Joanne mentioned it, but I'm not sure it's been listed up there.
Okay, does anybody have some
Oh,
comments?
13. So that would be, so are we going to combine 13 and 2, or are we going to leave them? That's that one.
You have a question?
I think the difference might be that number 2 would require probably a condemnation or eminent domain, while 13 might not.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep. Thank you.
Which raises the question, is Scott still on the committee? I don't see any.
As far as I know, he is. He sent an email last night saying he was not able to attend. Jimmy.
A question about building across from the Mormon Church. That's very narrow on the Kittitas Highway, but as it goes over the hill farther, it really broadens out. What's being talked about? Just right across the road is very narrow, or the whole big piece of property that's there.
I'm guessing that Dorothy's going to have an answer.
Yeah,
You want the green one? Probably?
okay, thank you.
That counts.
There is room across from the Mormon church. There's quite a bit of field there, agricultural area, and there is room, quite a bit of room there. It's not real narrow. Up across from the church, around where Bull is, that also is low and it's boggy like some of the other, but it's up on the hill. I guess the best thing to do is go by and look at it.
Okay, now I've got you down, but there's 2 yellows in front of you, okay? Hold that thought. Jen?
I just wanted to clarify the C1 each school grades. Can somebody explain to me more what that is getting at? Remodel MMS and build across from LDS and avoid each school grade.
Oops.
Okay, good. You got an answer for that?
Yes, typo, all grades, 6 to 8.
6 to 8.
That's easy. as compared to C2, where it's the Walker plan with split grades.
Okay. 6.8 versus split grade. Thank you.
Okay, and Marlene, you also had a yellow?
So is that building, on that, is that building 2 schools then with split grades? Is that what you're talking about? That wasn't my original question, but.
That's why it has 2 school options under C.
Yes, but C2 would C2 itself be 2 schools? That should be specified.
Walker.
Good question. That was my question.
Yes, I believe
Oh,
that's true.
my other question was, I don't know, not sure what property across from the LDS church, and who owns that, how many acres, what's?
Fence line?
Okay, does somebody have an answer for who owns the property across from the LDS church, the new LDS church? Anybody got a green card on that one? Yes, Paul?
That was the property that was looked at in the third bond, the whole property. I don't know who owns it, but I would have to assume that that's the same sort of general location that was looking for in the third bond. And they had 20, 25 acres that they were willing to sell.
Okay. Okay, and then we also have a, got your comment, we got a couple yellows first. Mike, and then Tor, and then Jimmy. So that's a question, these are questions of clarification, right? These are little yellow cards. Cool. Mike, go forward.
I guess I'm still confused on C1 then. If C1 is remodel and build, but we're not splitting the grades,
Okay, we have an answer for that, or is that finished? Is your question finished?
I think that's it. I guess I don't understand how you do that.
Okay, Michelle has an answer, and then maybe Steve.
I believe the plan is to have 2 6-8 middle schools.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. Okay, and then we have a question, Tor, another question of clarification.
I apologize for being late, by the way. I had a different concern. Number 9, maybe I missed this. So number 9, that does not include wiring the building for modern computer, et cetera, et cetera. That's just the most basic of basic.
Sure.
Is that number 9? No.
Number 9. I mean G. Does somebody have an answer for Tor's question? And we have 3 minutes left in this discussion. Steve.
It means whatever we say it means, I think, and I think you can't have a middle school without having technology.
Yeah, okay, all right, I just wondered, because it said bare minimum, and I just didn't know what that.
Allison has a comment.
That was my suggesting, adding, it's kind of a devil's advocate suggestion, but it's the almost do nothing option. It's the absolute rock bottom cheapest. You know, basically making it safe so we don't die in an earthquake and making it so it's not 100 degrees in there. But yeah, I didn't have in mind any other frills. Well, shouldn't call technology frills. That's all I had in mind because of that.
Okay. And then, let's see, Jimmy, you had a question, then Bruce, you have a comment.
I have just one question. My question still is, how much of that property across from the Morgan Middle School, from the Mormon Church, is really being discussed? If you drive by and look at it, it's very narrow coming.
That's okay, you can finish your sentence, I just want to raise this. What we're doing now is just listing the options. We're not evaluating them.
No,
You get to do that. Because they may not, these are just the options. They may or may not work. Does that help?
Okay, fine.
Okay. So, Bruce, thank you for your patience.
Okay, well, my comment actually pertains to, I think, the concept that got me to this table, not that I'm blessed. But, and I don't know how it's reflected here, but if we were to, but one of the options that we've talked with the board about in council is a community center in the old building and retaining utilization of the new. And I'm not clear that that's reflected anywhere, but it's confusing because it doesn't tie necessarily to the school building.
Okay. So you have a clarification on that?
Yeah, I have an answer to that.
Okay.
One answer to that. That this has that note at the top. It was just the
Can we all listen, please?
Can you,
Jimmy?
Oh,
Sorry.
the no,
We'll
so
sit you in the back.
in this skeleton structure. So one category was that if it had designated with the 3 cube stars, means that the option requires a plan for what will happen to current Martin Middle School. So any of those, and now I'm sure there are more, that would have that designation must it will require a plan for what happens to the current MMS property. So we could now, at this time, anyone could list specifics, I guess, specific options that break out what would happen, what would the plan be to happen to existing Morgan Middle School.
Okay, so that's a possibility, except we are now out of time. So Mike and Dorothy, I saw comments for you. The group can choose to add a little bit more time to this. It is kind of a foundational thing. If there are any more options to be listed.
Good.
Okay, any more options to be listed? Okay, you ready to accept this? Do you have more options to be listed?
I would like the option of other.
Okay, add the option of other, please. Okay. Okay, any other additions to this list? Okay, so does the group choose to adopt this list as a working list of the working comprehensive list of the options for the school facilities? Okay, so we have all green except one blue. I assume that means that you're okay either way.
Do you want to agree?
Okay, so you need more information before you can make a choice.
Actually, I wanted to make a comment, and that was just to agree with Dorothy that I think that it's likely, unavoidable even, that as we work through the criteria, new options are going to come to mind, and I hope we all agree that there would be room on this list for additional options. In that case, I'm agreeing.
Okay, so does that turn to a green then?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we will work with that list, and you'll be using it. You know, you guys just created the deliverable, sort of. I mean, like a road on the road to deliverable. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, so with that under our belts, you'll have lots of time later to discuss these things. With that under our belts, Lauren is going to present her framework. And you want me to facilitate some questions and whatnot?
Yes, sure. Yeah. But so does everyone have this copy towards you as you came in, or anybody who, again, I'm asking if everyone has a copy of this, and I'm sorry it's so not going so well on overhead. For the audience, here are some additional copies. Can you write down? Would you mind putting a couple, wait, let me, thank you. Sure, yeah. No, I just would like to go over what is here for any questions of clarification of of the structure that I made up, that we have made up. It's been consultation with a number of other people on the team. So I've only made a couple of tiny changes since you were sent the draft by email, and I'll try to remember to specify what those are. So the overall goal is to provide a framework for consistent review of our work today, to assist in the production of a status report, as far as I understand, on August 30th, and the production of a final report. And by the way, I'm going to just move through this quickly, so please just speak up if I'm not looking. I don't mind if we stop, if that is okay with Linda. But, okay, so the framework includes facility options and a list of decision criteria. The decision criteria come from the written charge to the team, with others added by various individual team members. The list attempts to include all options that have been raised in discussions. Addition and deletions are expected. And if anyone did not have, I made a few extra copies of the original charge, June 2014 team charge from the Ellensburg School District, and goals and criteria. So if you'd like to see that in front of you, and the list, well, I'll just continue that. This proposed steps, an idea for steps that we might follow for review and evaluation of these options. We should come to an agreement on a set of facility options and a set criteria list. And we've already done the first. Prepare a worksheet that all will use to record their evaluations and reasons. If done in groups, each group could review one facility option and apply all the criteria, or all groups could review all the options, and it's just a question mark there of what the team decides they wish to do. And I know that both Linda and I think Steve have worked on starts of a worksheet, but I didn't draft the worksheet. You know, I don't even know if we all want to use a worksheet. But third step then would be after the set of lists, a worksheet where we could record our reasons and our evaluations in a consistent manner. Third would be that analysis. Consider all decision criteria for each facility option. To me, 3.2 is really important. Write questions and identify issues for consideration. Essential here would be identify what further information is needed to assign an evaluation score. And the score, the idea was assign a number on a 1 to 5 point scale for each option and state the reasons for the grade or the points that you assign. Stating reasons probably will be very helpful for discussion later.
You want to take
yes, please.
Yeah. Regarding the point scale, when I've worked with facilities groups before identifying priorities for projects, normally the decision criteria are prioritized and there's a weight factor on them. So a very important decision criteria might have a stronger weight than one that's really nice to have but isn't, critical to the design. And so that we're not giving the same 1 to 5 score to every little decision criteria we might have. I mean, some are going to be way more important than others. And so I think at some point, it would be good for us to weight the decision criteria as to what's really critical and essential. Okay?
Yeah. My only thought on that is it might be, if we can really go for it, do the weightings at the same time that we agree upon the criteria and do it all in one process, if possible. And that's all. You can see we've already worked through all the facility options. Then last is decision criteria. And that term and terminology, one reason I wanted to do this was hopefully that we would use common terminology. And so I hope if we can use some of these terms. For example, criteria. And that word does come from the charge, the original charge, which the school board called team goals and decision criteria. So I put those all together on this list. That is to say, whether it was 1 or 2, number 1 and 2 a goal, and that's followed by a bullet point set of decision criteria. And those turn out to be, and this is what I could glean from what we've worked on to date and from the school board, in no implied order of importance under the decision criteria in the back page. 1, program needs and best practices. 2, land with both cost and adequacy, and so on. Safety, the material in the parentheses is just suggestions of where there might be helpful information. And for example, under safety, I think maybe the document I had mentioned to you, Linda, is a safety committee report of some kind, but maybe someone else can help there. 4 is called life cycle costs. Meg knows a lot, and I think Steve too, about the very much finer details of what are considered and called life cycle costs, another important term. Some are this includes a lot of things like operational costs, even scheduling and swing space, which means where do the kids go while the construction is going on, while the new school is being produced, and so on. So life cycle cost has quite a few items within it. 5 is construction costs. Use all the information we can get. We know that construction costs and other costs are very, very important. 6, potential for expansion using enrollment forecasts and I presume architects' recommendations. 7, technology, both needs and costs. Environmental impacts, and not only for environmental, but a number of other things. Joanne had given us this handout. I can get that up. Do you know which one I mean? And it has important points on environmental aspects.
Is that the exemplary?
Last week? Yeah, I think it does have the word exemplary in the title.
Public school facilities master plan guidelines, best division of public schools, school capital construction.
Yeah, or I thought it was from Joanne. Exemplary middle school from a site called designshare.com.
Oh, yeah, well, that's not just environmental. I think that was more, that document, I think, related to how the physical space, the physical design of the building affects how they're teaching the program. So it was more like that, but I can give you information about environmental, such as, green building and that kind of thing also. But when I saw that, I was thinking, I don't remember handing out a green building.
But
okay, so we have 3 more minutes for this.
Good. So it was, I just was throwing that out because I noticed there were interesting starting points here that are specific about green environmental stuff. But I just think that this is a really important document. So I'm referencing it and people can find it again. It's just a start, but there's a ton of anything we can get, I think, on environmental from you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And number 9, use of existing middle school site, logistics and costs. That's a criteria for some of the facility options, etc. And then open. So, and any other?
Okay, Paul, you have a comment.
This is just a comment to Joanne and related using weights. Once I was trying to make a decision among 3 different items, and it came out how I didn't want it to come out, so I changed the weights. So you always have to be cautious with weights.
Okay. Do you have a comment or an answer?
Well, I'm not sure what it is, but I put this little piece of paper by everybody's space because what I was concerned that we would get hung up on the criteria listed in the charge versus the criteria that Lauren listed, so I have done a little crosswalk between the 2 of them, and they're pretty much entirely the same, except that Lauren left out a couple that were in the charge, and the thing in parentheses, resources of location, she didn't actually have on her list, but when she and I talked, it was on her list, and it's basically the same thing as the transportation considerations. So that's what this is, so we don't get hung up on.
Do you have any extras of those?
I put some out.
Okay.
Back there. And also life cycle cost analysis, I'll send you a great link, great easy link compared to the hard ones.
I just wanted to respond to Paul. Usually the weights happen before you score.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's an exercise where the whole group gets together, everyone gets like 5 dots. Red dots or green dots of what's important, most important, least important, and they all the list of the criteria are on a board, and everyone goes and puts the dots on the ones that they think are more important or least important, and that helps sometimes with weight. So it's something we could do.
Okay. I don't think it was the intention of Lauren here to do a call for consensus on this. We won't have time to do much discussion of it. That could perhaps be pushed to next meeting for discussion of the framework. That was, yeah. Unless there's no discussion and you all want to say yes to this. Okay, so we're going to have to stop with that. So we will table this a discussion about this framework to a later meeting, either next time or some other time. And
I was just going to say thank you for Lauren.
Right.
Yeah, that's a purple card. Yeah.
Thank you to all the people who helped with it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So now we get to do the list of criteria, basically. I didn't bring dots. I love that idea about using those to weight them. That's great. I love those dot things anyway. So perhaps next time, or somebody can run out to Gerald's. Okay, so creation of a clarified and comprehensive list of decision-making criteria. We'll just do this similar to the way we did the options. Probably I'm guessing there might be a little bit more discussion, but maybe not. Now, do you have this, Jeff, to see? Do you have an extra one? Jeff, you're right there. Okay, just again, starting with this list that Meg put together perhaps, or the one that Lauren put together. We pretty much have, my understanding from the school board members is that we do need to use the decision criteria that are listed in the charge, or something that is similar to those. We cannot subtract, but can add or modify. Is that right? Dick and Meg, tell me if I'm wrong or Paul. That's since you guys are the ones that told me.
That was in charge.
That was the charge.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Okay, so Lauren.
It's a quick point of something I didn't intend to leave off of here, and that is that one of those points was to reunify the 3 grades, 6 to 8. And I intended that to be on here, so just an oversight. I'll just myself add it right now to this. So that is it was stated as a reunification of the middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8.
Well, that was a goal, not a criteria.
Oh, right.
Okay, so that was a goal, not a criterion. Okay, so I saw Dorothy and Molly have comments, but Marlene has a question.
Okay, middle school is what grades?
Does anybody have an answer for? Yeah.
Traditionally, it's 6 through 8. There are variations that are 5, 7, 5, 8. Typically not above 8th grade because you get into a junior high.
But we have a middle school. I guess my question.
Our middle school is 6, 8.
Why are we reunifying? I mean, we're just temporarily out. My next question real quick is, what is range uncertainty?
Okay, so we have an answer from Marlene?
Yeah.
Okay, Meg, sorry.
That's intended to address the idea that some people think that the cost of renovation have a wider possible range than the cost of building new, and that may or may not be true, but the question is, how certain are we that the cost is going to be what we've estimated it to be, which may vary among options.
So that's like risk?
Okay, what's your...
Risk, yes, like risk.
Okay. Okay, so Molly, you have it.
And it's not on Lauren's list.
So my question on the reunifying the 6 to 8 is that specifically about the fact that the students are now in the high school, or are we saying that are taking, that 6 to 8 is the only option, because then we've just now taken out the water plant. So,
Does somebody have an answer for that? Meg and Lauren have an answer for that?
Just a perspective that we could, while I agree with Meg, it's technically not one of the criteria from the school district, we could treat it as a criteria and evaluate the, as one criterion, I should say, yeah. That as a specific criteria for the a middle school.
Okay, so that was one answer to that question. Do we have other answers to the same question? Okay, whoa. Okay, Meg and then Allison.
Yeah, this is a different answer to the same question.
Okay, cool. And then
Because the charge actually says reunify unless a greatly superior option emerges. So it isn't, to me, it's mainly a goal, and it should not be used as a criterion, in my opinion, because it's not that absolute, and yet it's a strong goal. I mean, so that would throw out any option that didn't have 6 to 8, and I don't think that we should do that at this point.
Okay, let's see. Allison had an answer, and also Dick.
My perspective is that not necessarily that 6, 7, and 8 need to be together, but that high school isn't a healthy place for 8th grade. I think, in my mind, that's probably the largest priority there.
Okay, and Dick, you also
Just
had an
following
answer.
with Meg, is that it was 6 through 8, all in the same structure.
That's
came out of high school. And then there's got to be, if the committee wants to address grade configuration, it's got to be compelling. That as soon as you start going down that road, that's another year's worth of activity. So it seems to me, given where we're at least from the school board standpoint, is reunification, 6 through 8 in the same structure.
Okay, so any other answers to that particular question? Okay, we have 4 more questions. Dorothy, Mike, Tor, and Bruce.
This doesn't necessarily address how cost efficient the old middle school is at this point. I wouldn't the heating and cooling costs.
So is this a question of clarification, Dorothy, or is this a comment?
Well, it's a question. Is that included, for instance, is it included in number 9?
Okay.
Does the costs include the comparative of how well or how easy it is to heat or cool?
Okay. Does anybody have an answer for Dorothy's question about whether number 9 includes the cost of heating and cooling? Michelle?
I think if we work within the framework that Lauren has suggested, and we're identifying answers to the different criteria and how they apply, we would have to apply the same set of criteria to that, which would, in the end, flesh out the cost of maintaining the building as is.
I think that cost.
Okay, Steve, you had another answer?
A couple of years ago, probably set of architects published a paper that's an academic paper, which was reported in the press roughly as follows, and that is the greenest building is the one that's already built. The general thesis of the paper was that if you're going to tear down even the most rickety, drafty old building and build a Leeds Platinum building in its place, you may be going backward from an environmental standpoint.
Okay. So, and Meg, you also have another answer to Dorothy's question. And Jimmy, do you have an answer for Dorothy's question?
Yes.
Okay, so after Meg and then Lauren.
Number 4 is where the heating and cooling are. That's operational costs.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Jimmy, you also had an
If I
answer?
understood the question correctly, number 9 up on the board includes HVAC.
Okay, we have a red card here. Bruce.
I'm getting really confused.
Okay.
It appears as if some people are working off the decision criteria that's here. it doesn't necessarily tie to the criteria that's being put up on the board. So when you reference 9, I'm looking at safety, then I have to go back and look at MMS site. So it would be helpful for me if I understood what.
I think she's talking about 9 on the other.
Well, yeah, so.
So there's confusion here.
It's getting very confusing for me because, I mean, you're doing a great job, but you didn't have the framework.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Thanks. Yeah, there was not this before the meeting started. So to address that, you have something to address the problem of.
Those are options, and we're talking about criteria. There's two criteria.
I understand, I just need a reference, Meg. I'm sorry, number 9 on here.
Oh, yeah,
is,
not number 9.
well, I'm sorry, it says use of existing MMS site, and on our agenda, we're on decision-making criteria. It was very confusing to me then to look up and see a 9 that said safety and try to reference how that was tying to the comment.
Those should have been letters,
only observation.
because that's what they were in the proposal.
Okay, so there are actually 2 columns here. One is options and one is criteria.
Oh,
And so, Jeff, maybe could you highlight one or another, put them in different colors, or change the letters, change those numbers to letters? And I apologize, I just put this document together beforehand because I had nothing.
It's fine to have it together, I just.
Yeah, okay. We will need them together later on. That's
Other way around. Letters for the options, right?
Yeah.
Options get letters and criteria get the numbers.
Right. And my answer was wrong to your question because I was looking at the wrong list.
Okay, so
But it's
thank
there
you,
somewhere.
Bruce, and thank you for the answer there. Meg and Lauren, did you also have an answer to whatever question I've
I feel that I want to refer to the yellow cards that are around the room right now. I think there were other yellows.
Yes, there were.
Wait, yeah,
So the green is an answer to a yellow card.
Yeah, all I was going to say is about Dorothy's question about number 9, use of existing Morgan Middle School site. I feel like we could list all the criteria that we can think of right now and not really have decided, and I think that would be fine, about the weight of the criteria or whether they are essential criteria. Does every criterion have to be fulfilled, etc.? I mean, I just like to keep those separate right now.
Okay, Michelle, you have a process question?
It's my understanding that what we're doing right now is brainstorming and creating a list of criteria, and that we're getting into a discussion of it.
Okay. Okay, and more questions of clarifications. Mike, did you still have one?
I withdraw my question.
Okay. Tor?
Yeah. Beyond running a bond, could somebody just give me a little more clarification about available financing? Beyond, yeah, that's it.
Okay, so Meg has an answer for that?
We're supposed to have a presentation about that in a week or so.
Oh.
And I don't think there's a whole lot, but there might be a few other things places we could get money besides the bond.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
About selling the property we have.
Okay, Steve, you had another answer to the question?
I'm sorry. You know, I promised I would try to do better, and I'm not doing any better. I have a comment. I don't have anything to
Okay,
say about that.
so looks like we have, thank you. I'll get you after Michelle and after Bruce. Bruce, you have another question of clarification?
I have 2 questions. I would need some clarification because I believe that I heard Dick indicate that you're looking at a unified 6 through 8 when you're talking about whatever this criteria as a criteria, not a goal. It is a goal.
Okay, you have a clarification for that? We'll just pretend you have a green card in your hand.
Yeah, that's good.
If you go back to the team for the charge, the reunification is a goal, one or two goals.
I need a clarification then. If that's a goal, how does it not fall then into our decision-making criteria, into our matrix as an important element?
Okay, we have 2 green cards. I didn't see between the 2 of you who came up first. Okay, Steve.
It seems to me that the goal of combining 6, 7, 8 in one building or complex would inform the way the criteria are scored. and that's how it would affect it without being a criteria
Exactly.
itself.
Okay, that's fine. And one other question.
Okay, Meg, did you have another answer to that? Okay.
That's a terrible.
Yeah, and so Bruce,
Just
another
a-
question.
I just need clarification. When we say transportation, is that cost, distance, is what is that? It was on the charge from the board, apparently. It's now on the decision criteria.
Okay, Lauren has an answer and Meg has an answer.
Very quickly, just that's up to the group when we get to, do we want to have sub-criteria under transportation that specify what elements to consider about transportation? So that's up to us to define the definition of transportation variables or criteria. Sub-criteria.
Okay, and Steve, let's see, Meg, did you have also a clarification or an answer?
There are several items that were contemplated. How close to the charge. So yeah, we need to define that further. But being close to the center of town, how much driving is involved, traffic impacts, that kind of thing.
Okay, so, and now Audrey has a question of clarification.
For construction impacts, does that mean environmental impacts of construction? Or is that different impacts of, and if so, or if not, is the environmental impacts of a different criterion for the entire school?
Okay, any answers for Audrey's questions, two-part question? Lauren?
My list says construction costs, so I might have missed a little step there. Just checking in with Jeff. Under 7, unless someone has changed it differently, I don't think we did. It's costs, construction costs.
Okay, so, Meg?
Construction impacts is more about the impacts on the students and where they're going to be, and environmental impacts is under cost, although maybe it shouldn't be under anything. It should be by itself, but it's there.
Okay.
So just to check in, construction impacts, you want that?
I think that's, well, we can't take it off because it's on the original charge.
Okay. So, Michelle, thank you. Did you still have a comment? And then Steve.
I would like to add something to criteria. And that is, I would like to add that we maintain the existing 6A program as has been created.
Did you have a question of clarification there, Dick?
Well, yeah, I guess it's for Lauren and for Meg. I got 3 lists, 2 on this sheet now. And one list is a lot more clarifying than the other 2. It seems to me is that one that's up there is supposed to take into account these 2.
I can't read that, so I can't read it.
And I also...
The fine print doesn't get you.
And I'll speak to this one also because I was the one that made up that thing, not knowing that this one was going to come out. This was because we will need the list of options and the list of criteria. If you want to choose one of these, that's fine. It would be easier for Jeff, and we could just add them. So that's answers that. So let's see. You also had an answer, or are we teal?
I forgot the question, so maybe I'll just go back to my group.
Okay. So Tor, you also had. Did that help your answer at your question?
Yeah, it answered my question. Yes.
Okay.
Now I got to comment on it sometime.
Okay. After. I saw yellow. Okay.
Earlier I had forgotten the question. I remember the question.
Okay. And what answer did you have to your question?
Regarding maintaining the existing 6-day program as an added criterion instead of just as something that informs the scoring of the other criteria. Adding it as a criterion actually weakens it as a project goal, because now it's just a line item that's going to get a score of some sort and going to be added in with all the other scores.
I thought we were brainstorming.
Okay, so yeah, what we're doing is listing these things, and then if you look at the agenda, then we get to play with them with a little sandbox time and see where they work or they don't work, if that helps. I'm not sure where that's. Okay, so Tor, you had a question of clarification.
Promising that I'm not trying to muddy the waters. Is this list on the board here merely a reduction of this that came with Lauren's original sheet?
I'm just trying
So
to figure that
to
out.
reply that, and thank you, I thought, the one that's going up on the board now is supposed to be our work as a team for all criteria that we would like to be considered. We're not saying whether they'll end up as criteria or not, really, in my view. It's my view of what we're in right at this moment. So if there are any criteria that you feel should be considered, all of us should have those going in there. Jeff's going to record them for us. And then, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. My only concern is that there will be something on this list, and I'll have to sit here and make sure that it made it up there. You see what I'm saying? And that's okay. I don't mind doing that.
Right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm
Okay,
good.
so
That's great. No, it's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
And there's some missing stuff up there.
Okay, so I have for blue cards Steve, Dick, and Joanne. I have lost track of everybody else and the order in which you came up with them. Jimmy, Molly, and Dorothy. Okay. Now, I do want to clarify, do we need to get these? This is the third time that this question about which list are we dealing with has come up. Are people clear now about which list we're going with?
The one there, which is not complete.
Okay, thank you, Meg. And so
I want to make them really have the next available.
Okay, next available option. That's a good question. So Steve, you had a comment.
I have selected the worst possible time to bring this up, but I have yet another list.
I incorporated yours.
I did a little bit of work on Lauren's original item, and Jeff is projecting it up there. And let me very, very briefly explain what I did. In the left-hand column, I'm calling the left column factors, and criteria in the second to last right-hand column are the aspects of the factors that are decided to use to decide how to assign a score. And then there's also a column listing sources of information. This goes on for, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages. I just took all of Lauren's criteria, or rather all of Lauren's, what I'm calling factors, added the ones from the charge, and then put them in this table. I apologize for not bringing a handout, but it would have muddied the waters further. So let me just suggest that I would like the left-hand column, what I'm calling factors, since people are liking the previous spreadsheet, to be copied and pasted into the spreadsheet and greatly expand what that list is calling criteria. And then we can get rid of this and not look at it anymore.
Are there any in here that are overlapping with the ones that are?
Most of them.
I wouldn't say most of them. What
I think we need to
subdivided some of them. Where's your
Okay.
Or we can just move on and totally ignore this. Actually, I'm fine with that.
Okay, may I have it? We have 5 minutes left or 6 minutes left to complete this list. And so, okay, I'm just going to say, in order to keep this clear, can you take anything that's not already on the list that Jeff has from this list, add it to Jeff's list, and we're good to go?
Sure.
Okay.
Not right now, though.
Not right now. We'll have a break in 5 minutes. Okay, Dick, you had a comment. right? Do you even remember what it was?
I'll pass, and then the mail will come back to me.
Okay, I'll just put you in parentheses then. Joanne, you had it.
Okay, so it was for the list. So I wanted to say that I did agree that safety and environmental impacts should be standalone and not kind of lumped under where they were on the previous handout here. So that's good. Some others was thinking about, and I don't know the right term for this, bondability, likelihood of getting a bond passed might be one criteria.
I like bondability. That's bad. Bondability.
And then also, I'm not quite sure the best way to say this, but possibility of shared use spaces. So for example, if the middle school has an auditorium that fills the needs of the high school, you know, the proximity of those facilities, that influences that decision. Same thing with, say, the proximity of the youth center downtown, like, you know, it doesn't all, I'm not just pointing to one option by saying that, but there's a lot of shared use spaces. Parking, you know, if they're near an existing parking lot that's not used during the night, but we could use it for performances or athletic fields or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not just promoting one option by saying that. But,
okay. Now, Dick, you remember that you had a question instead?
It's a comment and a question. Unprogrammed needs. What I'm alluding to is performing arts, you know, with the idea that it's performing arts spaces for middle school and the high school. It's the only space available. It's the only opportunity to address that through this middle school issue. So is that going to be added later on in the program needs, or does that need to be a standalone? That's the question. The other thing that comes to mind, given the various presentations the last 2 years, is PE and facilities and health, and having 2 gyms. Right? You know, that comes to mind because that's a debatable item, and I'm sure it will be. Both of those. Will those fall under program needs that we identify later, or do we need to identify now? I guess that's my comment and question.
Does anybody have an answer to the comment part of that, or to the question part of that one? Yes, we have one from Joanne.
You could say adequate gym space or adequate, you know, PE space could be a criteria, or adequate performing arts, up-to-date performing arts space. Like those could be new criteria.
Then I would suggest that.
Okay, Steve and then Tor, and then we have another question. 3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes to sit here and try to remember.
I know.
I apologize. I didn't get anything to eat before I came, and my blood sugar's getting a little bit low.
You had an answer to Dick's question.
Yes. Yes. A number of things like the 2-gym business were brought up in the campaign for the previous bond. And explanations for that were attempted and for some people at least unsuccessful. I think that it would be a good idea for us to have on our list of criteria or factors as many issues that were brought up as concerns during the previous campaign as possible, and that's an example of one.
Okay, so we have 2 more minutes. I would really like to recommend that you focus on adding any criteria. So Jimmy, Molly, Dorothy, we will get to you.
I'm looking at the Common Vision Team Charge under potential decision criteria. The third one from the bottom is middle school project placed in the context of other facility needs. And I guess that is, how important is this project? That should be a criteria, I believe. And the other one is the ability of the community to visualize the outcome. That also is a potential decision criteria according to the charge of the task force.
Okay. Thank you. Molly, thank you. I know, patience.
Okay, so I wanted to know if this would maybe add to the bondability questions. And it also kind of goes along with what Steve was saying. And that would be bringing up some of the issues that had been in, and we could list them. But one of them definitely would be, with any of these, what happens to Morgan, which always will be the question that we have to have an answer to. So I would think it's a criteria. And if it's a bondable, whether that's, you want to put it in under that, under the 2 gyms, performing arts, or its own, I don't care.
Do you have a preference how it shows up? Do you want it on its own?
I just think we just have to focus on
Okay, so we've got that. Now, this is a question of clarification.
Yeah, just for Jimmy. Isn't number 18 really the same thing as number 13? I mean, I'm happy to say it the way number 18 is said, but I don't know that.
Maybe we can add them together, combine the 2 possibilities.
Okay, so we'll leave them separate. Thank you. Okay, so we've got, did you have an answer to something?
Well,
I'm not sure what question you're answering.
I think Steve and I both have to work on this list to add things that we think are missing. And what I'm hearing in this latest discussion is that almost everything everybody's brought up, in my mind, is subsumed under something that's there, but if people are wanting it pulled out, we need to do that too. So I think we, do a lot of work.
Might have to have a 15-minute break. Okay, Dorothy.
Again, I would like it if you could add other under there, so it gives us leeway. If the rest of it brings up something new, we have a place to put it in.
Okay. And Audrey, did your question get asked?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And let's see, Meg, did you have a comment? Allison?
This might be able to be combined with Joanne's shared space, so I'm thinking, how important is downtown location? I don't really know, like, how many kids go to the library or mom's office or the orthodontist versus another location. So I guess I'd like that downtown somehow figured in there. I don't know if it's an important criteria, but I want to bring that up.
Okay, and Paul?
Under bondability, since we're just brainstorming, and costs sometimes are different than what the price of a bond would be, so I would have price, location, being respectful of the historical and preservation, performance space, add what happens to Morgan, add the 2 gyms, because those are all issues that did come up in the last one.
Okay. So, and then we're actually 2 minutes over. Does anybody have any problem if we just finish this up before the break? Okay. So we'll see no problems. Let's go on.
2 points. I would like to see use of existing site, use of existing Morgan Middle School site as a separate item. What happens to Morgan? Yes, thank you. Okay, that's 10. Maybe that was already there. And I'd like to see construction costs as a separate item, but not meant to be a disagreement with Meg's. I'm just seeing, it's just that I'm seeing this list. We have, right now, I thought we had construction impacts.
We should.
Cost is
number 1 is.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, and yes, we have a red card process question.
Just a question, yeah. Both on this and the next part of the agenda, both votes start with observer comments.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. I'm sorry. My bad. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, Bruce. I totally spaced it. Sorry about that. Are there any observer comments? They're supposed to be first, but here come the pizza. Yay! This is from Cornerstone Pie. Okay, thank you very much. If you want to put it up there, you'll be very confident. Okay, so not that we're distracted or anything, but we still have 2 more comments, Steve and then Mike, and then I have a comment after that. Steve.
It seems to me that Meg and I are going to have to have a discussion about whether more items on this list is better than fewer items. but it seems to me that it would be possible to take, for example, safety and divvy that up into maybe as many as a half dozen different things, having to do with outside access, inside layout, controlled visitors. You see what I mean? Or maybe not, it's okay. So during the break, you, Linda, had asked me to add the criteria from my list to that list, to that list. I'm not entirely comfortable doing that, outside of the regular meeting, but I can't think of a more time-effective way to do it. So that was my comment.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Mike, did you have another comment?
I do. On number 20, downtown location, I'd like to have the word downtown removed and maybe change it to like location amenities or location whatever. Because I'm afraid if we leave the word downtown there, it skews it toward a discussion about pro-downtown.
Yeah.
So
But there could be some more, I'm sorry, I think I'm still talking.
Yeah, okay, there
Am I
wasn't
able
a
to
question.
continue or not?
Mike, go ahead.
Okay. The number 13. I guess I need some clarification then. Michelle and I presented last week what are the important factors in our program. Health and fitness being one of them. And if having enough gymnasium space is even a negotiable, to me, it's the same thing as saying we aren't going to put in enough classrooms, we aren't going to put in enough science labs, whatever. I'm very concerned that we are cheapening the program. And this is just Mike whining a little bit. When Valley View was built and when the high school were built, there wasn't a requirement for the staff to justify their programs. They said this is what we need, and a school was built to meet those needs. Just as when the hospital was built and remodeled, the doctor said this is what they need and this is what they did. And when the jail was built, the sheriff's office said this is what we need, and that was what was built. So I'm very concerned about this discussion now of us discussing, do we really need this or do we not really need this? When the experts have told you this is what we need.
Okay, so are there any other, okay, now I want to go back because there was an important question asked and the pizza came. Are there any comments from the observers that you would like to add? I'm sorry that I missed you at first, but okay, cool, thank you, I just needed to finish that, sorry, pizza. And you are answering what question?
Mike. Or maybe it's, there was a lot in what Mike just said. And so maybe I have some question answers and maybe I have some comments. By calling out gyms, for example, it gives us an opportunity to consider why gyms are important. And that strengthens the ability of whoever's going to have to go out and sell this, to go out and sell it. If gyms is on the list and this group gives gyms a high score, that's going to look authoritative, I hope, to the voters. So that's one thing. I don't think anyone here wants to leave out important elements of the program. There's value to having things on the list. It's not meant to upset anyone. The other thing is, and with all due respect, I came to Central Washington University the year after the new science building was built, fulfilling the dreams of the people who worked in the building. And quite frankly, there was a good deal of waste as a result of that project. I don't think there's anything wrong with there being some balance between, and I would suggest that the Valley View project and the high school project could have used a little oversight also. I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of citizen oversight, or at least having the opportunity to be explained to why certain elements of a project are important.
Okay, we are now 10 minutes over our time, and having been requested to do this by the group, I am going to stop. If there are any further, we will now take a break. If there are any further additions to this or clarifications to this, please do so during the break. Talk with each other. We're going to go on. This is a work in progress. This is a moving document. Okay, and yeah. Okay, we will meet back here at 7. Comes the sandbox time. At this point, we use whatever criteria we have up there, and I'm guessing more will be added during this process, which is fine. But this is the initial review of the middle school options. Now, before anybody stops breathing, this is not about choosing. This is about playing with these things and seeing what it's like to play with them. So, and we'll have some, I'll make sure I don't forget the observers this time, thank you. So, what's going to happen next is I will split you into groups of 3 or 4, and then using the criteria that the teams just created, now that was an optimistic sentence that I wrote down on my notes there, but you know, it doesn't say comprehensive criteria. Begin to evaluate the options that will be assigned to your group. Each group will work on a different subset of options so that we can just play with all of them and see how all of them might work with these criteria. The focus of this time is to compile a pretty good list of what further information the group needs in order to make decisions. Okay, so this is the beginning, this is to help that go on. Plus, discover any necessary tweaking to the criteria. I'm guessing that might be a bigger part than what, yes? What?
I just want to miss it again. Were we supposed to take observer comments before this section?
I will as soon as I finish talking.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. A real review will happen later, you know, in a different meeting from this. This is just a start to this in small groups. And we will not be making any choices during this evening. Hopefully the group could begin to winnow things down soon, but that's not going to happen today, I don't think, unless the group really comes toward that. So, winning groups, you will choose a scribe, somebody to write down on these handy dandy little forms. You will write the option you're considering at the top. You'll consider one option at a time. You'll copy the criteria as you go along on the left column. If that's what you want to do, if you can write really small, you can list them all, whichever. Discuss how the option fits the criteria. And then try rating it if you want, 1 to 5. See how that goes. Put a question mark if you don't have enough information. You can put a number in a question mark. You can put any symbol you want. I don't care. But the important thing is to write down what further information you'll need in order to evaluate that option fully. You want to use as much room as you need. There's double-spaced, you know, double-sided. Meg, I put these double-sided. You're welcome. And then about 10 or 15 minutes before the time is up for this section, we'll come back to the large group to share comments on how it went. I will collect the forms and a list will be compiled with what further information is needed, which will allow Paul to start to schedule and provide information as much as possible. So, I'll have you get into your groups and then we will have any comments from the observers here. Question? Comment,
sort of clarification.
Okay.
And I just want to bring up, because Molly and I had a chance to chat at the break, and she asked about me adding the number 12 criteria on maintaining the existing 6-8. And I wanted to say, I fully recognize that that shuts the door on some things, and that's not necessarily, that's not my intent at all. I value it so strongly that it was important for me to put it on there. My understanding of what we were doing was brainstorming, and there may be things that come off or get added later, but, so that's where, like, I don't want to close any doors or stop progress by adding that, so I just wanted to clarify that. Is that okay?
Okay, so the groups are, in that corner, Dorothy, Tor, Molly, and Dick. So Tor, you're the only one that has to move. At that end, Steve, Jen, Marlene, and Paul. About midway here, Joanne, Jimmy, and Michelle. Over here, Audrey, Allison, and Bruce. And more or less up here, Lauren, Mike, and Meg. So that's Dorothy, Tor, Molly, and Dick. Go ahead and move. Steve, Jen, Marlene, and Paul. Joanne, Jimmy, and Michelle. Audrey, Allison, and Bruce over here. And Lauren, Mike, and Meg in this little corner here, or next to me. Okay?
Wait, who are you? I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Where are we, over here?
Do you have the form? I do. I'm going to get out of here. Right here. Oh, with Laura. Okay.
You're going away?
Yes. Here. Yeah. Right. Like this. Right. All right.
I vote for Molly being structured. Wow, 2-1.
You will indeed. Okay. No, you do not know yet. Okay, there's more pieces of paper up here if you need them. Okay, you all are doing A, F as in Frank, and K as in key. A, F, and K. This list up here. Okay. So then the letters I'm going to give you are referred to the list up on the screen. These are the letters. So you guys had A, F, and K. Okay, you have B as in Bob.
A is that building.
Okay. Michelle is in Michelle.
Minimum volume site and.
Okay.
In other words, it's a model.
We do all have.
I was just going to say, we got the.
It's an A, F, H. K is
First one to build new at Mount
She give us 3 of these then? Oh, yeah. See, when each
Mock
one
ball
is
is
one of our. So if I'm writing, I'm writing. See what I mean? So this is like, one of these is going to be.
You will not do that. I will do it. But I will not shred it. Yes.
I said 10 to 15 minutes.
But I would do it one at a time.
all sections at Morgan.
About how much time? Well, when you said 10 to 15 minutes, or later, and you said 10 to 15
Old
minutes.
relative term, you know, but old section.
So,
Presumably it's
yeah.
29 to 35.
So I will bring the group back together at 7:40, unless you all finished all this stuff earlier. Okay.
Portable only. Morgan Middle School site.
I asked him if.
In other words, essentially.
Well, I didn't ask. Oh, I hate that. Did you guys have comments before? I am so sorry. Did you have any comments to make before they started? Good. You guys want some up more? Okay. Well, you want, let me get you a form and you guys can play around with it and see how it works out. Okay, somebody asked me a question.
Yeah, so what we're doing is like, we have A after K, so we do A, F, and do K, correct?
You can do it that way, or you can do all the criteria. However you want to do it, but you want it each page. And I would recommend.
Let's go down the list, and we're gonna go down the list with maybe the
Sure, yeah. Either do the easiest one first or get the hardest one out of the way.
Portals, in other words, either level everything, put portals on there, or keep it as and just keep adding portals and not all.
Yeah, you know, you're still not the whole thing.
It's crazy, it's stupid, they ain't gonna have. Lauren's been messing with me. She's great on recording things.
I mean, they're within so there are people we might think that. So we just need to go to that, like,
Well, it's a set of reality, which we know.
and then we look at
the criteria.
So the 18 says cost, construction, risk, finance. I would imagine cost would be low.
They're on
so what are the costs would be?
So I want to hear yours. Just
It wouldn't last very long.
Exactly.
Did you guys want to try this too? You're welcome to do that. Okay. Well, if you want
Cost construction.
So what about programs? Housing without well, there you go.
Great.
Concentrated.
It'll be a big site, right? Wouldn't it be because they're all?
I was gonna say, are you gonna need 10, 15 portables? I think some of the wetlands, I think it's with, let's say wet, they got toilets and things, is that mainly on Terra Lane and the installation of the dry ones, or because you gotta up to that. There was a discussion about 10, 15. Well, you're going to be mothballing, you're really going to be tear everything down. Because there's mothball or demolition. And so if it's mothball, it's really going to be concentrated. The 60s and 90s, that's how I would think so. I mean, that the only thing that makes sense.
My parents.
Because this is going to be the first run, then you have the second run because you're going to ask more questions.
Right.
So let's keep just temporary. Because you can't.
Just have a question, maybe to clarify, make sure 1 is the lowest, high is the 5 is the highest.
Oh, yeah, we can give preliminary. Community understanding, this would be Dorothy again.
Next one is technology. I would think with 10, 15 instructors, we're going to have a real issue about connecting all the so it's technologically, I think it'd be a challenge. They're all good. Change classes and going outside. Incremental weather and in snow. There might be no walk there. It's either demolished or being able to demolish, you answered the question. It's mothball, you still have a question. We could go through this again, but just
this is our first one, I'm kind of. Septic system has potential but still have all these.
So Trish,
rather than number 12, maintain existing do that. Scratchers that would do that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure somebody will
that's a good point, right, you'd have to put somewhere else. Transportation.
No, I didn't say that was
I just want to speak to that real quick. The whole point is the acoustics are really answer questions all the way to sidewalk. But you're really touching on discriminating on this one. Big front yards, and it's a bad acoustic. Right.
So possibility. Okay, number 16 is adequate physical education spaces.
Have to bus them over the high school. And then they have to share it. They're still allowed to use the gym at home.
I would think they are. I thought we were integrating these. But that would go down.
No, no, I don't. No, I don't. She asked, what do they do now?
Are we rating how important this criteria is? You want to rate this option based on those criteria.
So I mean, that's the question.
Ability to visualize.
So not waiting.
Yeah, you can visualize it.
Oh, okay, rating. You're rating them.
You're evaluating
based on how they match.
Okay, that got us started.
Got that.
Is that how it works?
Were you weighting them? Making them?
I'd like to know the heating, the average heating.
Okay, so Saul's location does that. How does the building? How well does it?
But I think since we have two.
And what happens does that address? So how would that, how would this as an option?
Well, I would say our criteria and we're asking, I mean, that's how much did we get it.
Context of other facility needs, I guess, is this important in relation to other facilities? Elementary.
Right? That was the only one I had to sort of right now. So I thought I'd just how does it what's going to happen organic? What does it we all
yeah, well, let's sort of go through that might we might go with A. So the first thing we're going to consider is it is, yeah, it's yeah. Well, actually, we're following the criteria. We gotta follow the criteria. And one of those, when we get the environmental, we can get water or whatever we else we want.
Unless we think water works into cost.
Yeah.
If water would be very expensive to
Yeah,
ameliorate.
okay, but let's just
Although
say
I
cost.
think it's fine. That was cost.
Okay, so one of the things is that we own the property, so that cost is.
I think it's, you say competitive.
Get rid of
We're up in our costs. Yeah, just stay with costs, just focus on costs. Now, well, just think of costs of what the building at Bellevue. No, I want you to talk, but I want you to think about costs, because we'll come to the other.
Yeah, we'll come to.
That's why these criteria are supposed to help us.
So I think
Right, construction costs.
it seems to me it's so, I say that. Because you listen to those architects' presentations.
Need a way to compare.
Kind of, so what about, do we want to get, you've got a, you're bearing down the issue,
My answer to that is just water's an issue anywhere in the province or the Great Zone. You know, and when we did mitigate.
I would say one of the things that we see now is,
possibility of sharing space.
Rating as to how well the criteria applies to that option, is that what you're doing? Or are we saying how important it is? Meets that criteria.
One to five. We can find that out, but yes, okay, that's your opinion. Great. What do you think?
Didn't they already figure out what the water pollution was when they did the last option?
Well, it's not an issue, it's an issue that we addressed in the high school. And so, because of the high school, it's okay, locations, and what they spend on that, they just transfer the figures and say, yeah, it's okay. So in other words, it's a known issue and a good handle on what the cost will be. Okay, yeah, you're right, but that's I think you know
but now we don't have to worry about third grade.
We don't have to worry about it because we don't live over there.
Yeah,
next criteria the program needs, and I think the answer to me is that yes,
We didn't have to do
limiting factor is going to be cost, and so people are going to buy into
Well, then we come back to, at 7:40, we come back to.
So we've got the other official one is say, yeah, we're going to code.
expand this.
Because of the combination of three schools? Gridlock.
That logistically is already.
I think one of the mitigations to that, Paul was talking about, transportation. So, I guess transportation is going
We need to know. I don't know where that is in, you are going to have one.
You could have gotten some agreement on that, but probably not with the difference.
So I'm just saying how efficient. So it's more transportation.
If somebody wants to do that.
Or are we talking about inevitably transition?
Okay.
That needs to be further explored.
Right, so let's go on to the other option.
What's our next thing then?
I always like to start, whether it's on this one or
Okay, we'll come back to the group in 7 minutes.
See, I guess, to me, it's predictable because they're AMIC to me, I'm just going to write.
I don't want to not do all we have to let
Smaller than 18 acres. But then we got shared facilities. Role and long-term plan, the then the community understanding, I guess.
Well, in honesty, the 59.
But I can't read it down like this.
What's that? Well, but that's conjecture, right? I mean, you could have, I could say, I'm just saying, I can say the opposite.
But
you could have, or you could have people say.
I know.
The opposite. Very, very effective.
Right. The other thing about cost.
Like that, but it's
Minimal. Being supposed to, that you guys be temporary
Oh, they're still over it.
Well, yeah, the same morning is probably. I'm looking from the standpoint of students, I think you're looking from the standpoint of actual traffic. Technology,
Be a new school, right?
Safety is probably that.
So I don't know how to say
Well, you know, you're gonna have, it's gotta be built according to lead.
Well, I guess the question for that one is it any more or less happening there than somewhere else? What Steve was saying is the environmental impacts of building new. There's some thinking that says building new is always a worse environment. Profitability. You have the same issues that you had with the last one. That goes through the roof though, because the high school groups could all come over and use the arts facilities. Track and field.
So that, to me, that's.
Well, absolutely, and that's my big question.
Well, it is because exactly.
2-minute warning.
Just because that's
Building the community to visualize the outcome is hard. Okay, all right.
But I will collect the notes. I might have one.
It's got to be two things, polishing and then soon as you crack that open.
Once you open the walls, what do you have?
And that's the thing that people I don't understand is that these guys we remodel everything. But they
Well, no, they're the ones that are, aren't they the ones that are saying they don't know what's up?
Well, that's where they cover their contingency. So you're fixed.
Safe in what concept? And that there's drugs at the high school?
See, I was kind of wondering about that.
Okay, please take your seats, just finish up. Whoever is scribing, please put your name on it in case I can't read something. And pass your little grid things to me, so we'll capture that stuff, maybe. Solve the world? If it's not by you, you're okay. Okay. We're suffering both back.
Kept your chair warm while you were there. We're going to do school consolidation with virtual
Well, that could have been infinite though. Okay. So I have the sheets from every group.
Oh, I'm getting out.
What's that?
I'm getting out in front of things.
We don't know what the discussion is, but we're going to get this.
That's right. I'm ready to make a comment.
Yeah. Just don't get this one ready. Okay, well, I'm just going to, So there isn't going to be discussion on this except by round robin. I would like to round robin on this for, is that a verb? Round robin on this about how helpful or unhelpful that was to you. Mike?
Very good discussion. Gave us, I think, all an opportunity to look at a variety of different sides of the issues.
Okay.
I thought it was very helpful. A lot of in-depth conversation and seeing other opinions on both sides, yeah.
I thought it was very helpful. It didn't satisfy my concern going in, so this was not a reflection of our group. And my concern going in is that we are working with the same definition of these criteria. In other words, if I sit down to apply the safety criteria to any one of those options, but pick someone, Jimmy has a different idea of what that safety means, then we're comparing oranges and apples to each of the options. So I felt concerned that we have more clarity on the specifics of the options, of the criteria, sorry.
Ditto. I mean, I thought it was a good process, but it's going to take a lot more doing it.
Okay.
I'm with Meg. It was a lovely little baby step, and we didn't quite fall, on our diapers, but yeah, it was good stuff.
I really liked it. It was a great conversation.
I think, I don't know if it's defining the criteria. We had a lot of good conversation. We didn't have a lot of good ratings. I mean, that's barely put. We did not get to the point where we were able to comfortably rate. And so what we were finding is, in addition to not having clarity of definition of criteria, simply trying to deal with this very simple presentation generated a whole range of questions for information we would need to be able to function. Even if we had defined the criteria, we've probably found that we had still gaps in our knowledge.
And just a little question about that. Did you write down what the gaps in your knowledge?
They're somewhere out there. But
okay.
I was the scribe, so good luck.
But I know where you are. Okay.
I thought it was very helpful, and I was pleasantly surprised how in sync we all were with our opinions.
Yeah, that was very useful, especially getting information from Bruce about what the city could do to alleviate some of our problems.
I thought it was really helpful. We went through a bunch of questions, but we didn't do any rating because we were focusing, I think, on generating questions. But we were very similar in agreeing about what those questions were. There was easy commonality there.
We had a great group of 3 working together. Maybe a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. I don't know. But anyway, we moved rapidly very forward. We were able to reach consensus on ratings for what we got done. It was a very positive experience. It made me feel like we're doing something.
I guess for me, one of the things that I take away from it is that there was a lot of questions that I was able to answer, and that perhaps this entire group needs to have some of those answers.
I think I agree with Steve that it is a baby step, but it was nice to be able to brainstorm together, and mostly we formulated questions, and maybe it would be helpful to do a similar thing, but then everybody comes back and rates, you know, those different options, criteria, in order to, you know, after the fact kind of process what rating they would have.
I thought it was good, but with what Paul said, I was just saying the same thing when Bruce evidently helped that group. We'd like to hear too what the city can do, so I mean, be nice to know more things. Anyway.
Ditto times 15.
Yeah, and the idea of getting a little bit more specific on our criteria and doing it as a group where all of this knowledge comes together at one place is a pretty exciting thought that we might be able to do that.
I have to agree with a lot of different people, and I would suggest and print it out so we can see it. Because there are 2 of us that couldn't. And this gives us an idea of what we're looking forward to. So if we want to tuck tail and run, we can do it.
Not an option. Okay, thanks. It was really fun to walk around and listen to people and to watch people's engagement or confusion or whatever, that there's movement there. We have a couple extra minutes. I'll go ahead and ask, are there any comments from the observers? This is now, we'll move this forward. Instead of the 750 comments from the observer, it will be 748 comments from the observers. Anybody like to say anything? No comments from the observers. Okay. So we have an extra 7 minutes. There are a couple things. We could either start the last item. I think it's probably going to take a little bit of, it might take a little while. Or it sounded like there was some interest in hearing what the city could do. Any sense of what you'd like, Mike?
I realize our agendas are incredibly full in the future weeks, but it might be nice if we had a period of time for Bruce to share the city piece and for Paul to be able to do some Q&A, and maybe Michelle and I as well, from the group, so that the whole group hears these answers. Because, like Paul was saying, he was able to answer some questions in his small group there, and I'm sure we'd all like to hear that just as much as I think we all want to hear Bruce's comments. So.
Okay. Let's see. Is that what question is that answering?
I agree. Well, is that green or purple?
I think it says on the top. Doesn't it say on the top what color it is? Dorothy, you had a comment?
Again, I think we need more meetings. I think we need to agree on more meetings because we're not going to get done in time.
Okay. So, does anybody have any problem with moving directly to the review and assessment of the meeting and looking forward to next meetings, however many of them there are? Anybody have any concerns about that? Seeing none, we'll move that item forward to 750. So this is just basically, how did it go? I'm hearing that you already started doing that for future meetings. You'd like something like Bruce to share about what the city could do, Q&A from Paul and maybe Mike and Michelle as well. What are questions that need to be addressed and items that need to be scheduled? Yes, Tor.
I just wanted to say that, and I got your email, and I don't know exactly what form it would take, but I am volunteering to be a clearinghouse of frequently asked questions about this issue. And for me right now, that means nothing more than a Excel spreadsheet of questions. Not answers, not conjecture, nothing, just questions. And trying to say, these 4 questions are pretty much the same question. And you know, how many times were we asked this question? I'm more than willing to do that, so.
Okay. So people can send any questions that they have to you, and you will compile them and send them out, and people can
absolutely.
do
If people want
virtual-
to email me, I'm not worried about my email. If people want to email me questions, you know, I'm just gonna, and not expect an answer, right? I'm just collecting the questions.
Okay.
Clarification.
Okay, and then
I just wanted to ask, you're talking about the people that you meet, these are community people questions? Or
Right.
questions?
Any questions that we garner from our exposure to the community that people are like, you know, I met with a friend of mine the other day, and he wanted to know, he said that whole third ad thing, that was really all just, you know, which came first, the middle school or the third ad project, you know. So that's a question, right? And I didn't have an answer for him, but I think it's important that we know that that question's out there.
Right. Great.
Okay. And you had a question? Same question. Okay. Steve.
So it seems to me that we still have well, yeah, it's a comment card, so I got to make a comment. It seems to me that our list of criteria is still incomplete. And I'm also hearing a little bit of confusion about how to break out the criteria for rating. So I'm wondering, I was going to turn into a question, I apologize. I'm wondering, is that going to get fixed offline before the next meeting, or because we're really not ready to do this for real. This was a fun exercise, but we're far from being ready to do this for real.
Okay, Lauren?
I think I just have to answer a similar comment or corollary is how a major step, it seems that has to be next, is what criteria and how, I've heard other people say, we need to be sure that we can agree on what we will think about in each criteria. So, and we need to keep it a manageable list of things, but I think it needs to be common. I'd like to hear more other people's opinions about that, but I think it needs to be a common understanding so that each group looks at this, basically the same things under a named criteria like safety, criterion, should be grammatical, criterion of safety, you know, what are the things to look at?
Define.
Yeah. Tor, you
Well, I would back that up by saying, I mean, I think that goes to the very heart of what we're being asked to do, which is, you know, how would we advise the school board if we don't know how to define those critical criteria? I think, you know, not that the step of applying them to all the options isn't important and is going to be very contentious, but if we don't, you know, agree on what they mean in the first place very clearly, then the next step would be very difficult.
Okay, we have a yellow card first, a question of clarification, and then
Well, I guess it's clarification on the process that we're going to be embarking upon, and is that, do we need to have all of the criteria? Like when we went through our process, it was very clear that one in particular of our selected options didn't meet, I mean, it was a ton of ones. Now granted, the three of us just kind of jumped in and talked about what does that criteria mean, and we used that for our definition, so I understand that may be different from somebody else's. But is there a step in here where instead of doing this for all 15 options, that we will narrow down like we were talking about building, we had building new on a different location. Well, we said, gosh, if you're building new, it really doesn't matter where you're building new, it just depends on if you're adding the cost of property or not. And so, is there a way to, so that we're not applying, because it sounds like the list for criteria could get quite vast and get very detailed, but to have to apply that to building new at Valley View, building new at Mo Nesbit, building new on existing, can we narrow, I mean, is that a step that we can take?
We have an answer to that question, Molly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have an opinion, I guess that's an answer. And that is, I think we need to bend over backwards to look at every single option and go through the criteria. And if it says NA, then, you know, it doesn't apply. It just shows this transparency that we thought of everything and that somebody didn't come up with an idea on something else. That would be my opinion. And I don't know that it would take that much more time. We all just zip through 3. You know.
Yeah, you're true. Thank you.
And the score will come out, and then that will take them away, rather than us taking them away without doing it the process.
Okay, another question of clarification, and then Bruce.
I'm wondering what criteria, what list of criteria other people used and whether they had difficulties with this long list. Because we just said, to heck with it, we're going to use a shorter list. Okay, so I'm wondering if other people had trouble with that, because my opinion is that the list needs refinement to make it easy to apply.
Okay, since that's kind of I'm not sure if that's
well, the question is how did it work?
Okay, so Bruce.
Well, actually, I think it's what I was trying to use as a comment, but now it's maybe an answer, so I don't. But I mean, my comment was simply that I think before we define the criteria, we have not defined, we have not agreed on the criteria. That to me is the first step. I mean, is this going to be a list of 2,000? If it is, okay. If it's going to be a list of 10, so be it. And then we could begin to define those criteria with a common definition. So, and I have another, just a quick comment to Molly's, is that we didn't zip through 3. We marginally did half of 1.
Oh, and we didn't zip through.
Well, but I'm just saying, so, and part of it was the criteria, part of it were the questions. So.
Okay, so these are answers to which question?
Meg's question.
Meg's question. Okay, Michelle, and then Steve.
And if I'm speaking out of turn, please chime in. I felt like it was relatively simple to go through the list that was up there. 5 and 17 ended up being the same thing. 6 and 18 ended up being the same thing. But we were able to, I made notes, so if we said transportation, maybe we rated something a 1, we just wrote Y. So that, but we had no trouble at all except trying to figure out what community understanding meant, and when we got that was the visualizing piece of it, could the community understand the project? But we may have just taken a really simple approach to it and was just, we were going to get done with our 3, and I felt like it went very smoothly.
Okay, and Steve, did you have a comment? Okay. Steve, you had an answer to Meg's question?
The process did not go particularly smoothly for us. We had Paul in our group. It did not go smoothly in spite of the fact that we had Paul. We had answers to many of our questions, and the questions were what slowed things down. It seems to me that it would go more smoothly if the sources of information were identified and we had a little time to review the information that relates to each criterion. But I just had an idea in saying that, and that is that we could split up the criteria and research the issues related to each criterion for each option, or even vice versa, and then present that to a group as a way of dividing the work. So that, I don't know what a matrix with A through O options and 1 through, say, 16 criteria would look like, but there would be many holes. It'd be a lot of work to fill that in. An answer to comment.
Okay, and I think Lauren, and then
For Michelle, so it's just going back just for a minute, and I just was curious if in your group and what you described, did questions come up? Did you write down were there some questions that came that might be generalizable questions? I mean, we found in ours that we came up with questions that would be questions for almost every option that needed to be answered in order for us to agree.
The only thing that we said, you know, for the community, we had, one of the ones that we had, we said for the community to understand it or to be able to visualize it, they would need to see some kind of layout or some sort of drawings, because it would be hard for them to conceptualize why that would be the plan you would put forward. But honestly,
But that would be the case with all of them.
Right.
So it's like, why compare it anymore?
I was just curious that's all, that answer.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to share what we did, but it was, I'm not kidding, we just clipped.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to that a little bit more. I think we just made assumptions as to what that meant and discussed pros and cons of that category, say transportation, and what, you know, you know, in discussing those, we kind of said, well, did it do well or did it not, you know, and sometimes we split up a decision criteria into two pieces because if it combined, it's like site size and organization, it might have been really great for size, but it wasn't necessarily good for organization, so we kind of split it up. We just made assumptions and went with it. But I wanted to get back to that valuing process I mentioned earlier on in the meeting, where you take the criteria and you put them all on lists on the sticky paper on the wall, and people get their dots, and you look at them, you discuss, you know, we could do that as a whole group, maybe at the next meeting. You look at them together, you ask questions about the items together, or maybe you vote on them and find out what are the most important ones. But then normally the groups of people, they start consolidating. There are several that are similar or fall into the same category, and then we kind of tighten up the group. So it doesn't become a longer list usually, it's a shorter list where you consolidate some of the criteria together. And normally that's in a room, and that committee discusses that together. And you know, after you rank things, you know, some things turn out to be more important and others less important, and you focus on the most important things and not into the minutia of everything, because designing a building adequately of this size, a building or two buildings of this size, that it takes a good year, you know, I mean, of constant meetings. So for us to expect that we're going to design everything in the little time that we have, we can't. We have to focus on the important things. And but I think that we can do this valuing process and talk about the criteria and rank it together and discuss them and have people answer together. So like as Steve was saying, maybe the whole group, where the people that have the information can share that with the rest of the group.
Okay, so, and just to, you know, pay attention to the cards in terms of, is it really a question or is it really a comment? Jimmy, you have a comment?
I have a comment. I think we have accomplished a lot tonight, perhaps more than we have accomplished in any single night before. We are really good at making work for ourselves. We can sit around all night and come up with question after question after question about any of these up here. We can say, oh, you said that. Well, how about this point? let's go there. We don't need to make all that work. I was a little confused about what was said earlier about the options. They were unclear. If those are unclear, I don't know how you can make them much clearer. If you're going to build new and raise Morgan or whatever it is, I mean, that's, that's what it is. If you're going to build new on the Moe site, that's what it is. I don't know where all the questions come from that we can't reach some kind of agreement easily without making ourselves an awful lot more work.
Allison, I didn't see which, there wasn't a question asked.
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
if you have a comment. Okay, so Allison, and then I didn't see if it was Bruce or Tor first.
Just a response to Jimmy, I agree that those are really clear, but I think in our defense, our first option was the Walker plan. So it had one campus here, one campus there. So we're like, oh, well, transportation, well, that depends. Program needs, well, that depends on so many other things. So I think we got bogged down just in that particular option. Whereas if we had built new, that would have been much simpler. So it just, maybe we just experienced a lot of trouble because of the plan we were on.
Okay, and Bruce?
So I have maybe 3 comments. One is we're in review and assessment, and we started 10 minutes early, and I don't think there's a need to go to 8:30 then. Just to be clear on that. So which then leads me to, I think this is a good meeting. I think your ability to keep us on track and on time is huge, and appreciate it. Looking forward to the next meeting, I would suggest that we, if we need it, I mean, I certainly have some written materials I can share before we get here, and then do not long, 5-10 minutes is all that's needed really to do the dog and pony on what the city's looking at this point. I would suggest that if there is a list or a criteria list that's either generated from what Steve's done or Meg's done or something, that we do what Joanne's suggesting. Just get them up on the board, let's rank them, score them, at least then, if something falls off, you have that opportunity. Part of what I've done, something that you're passionate about scores low, you still have the ability to advocate for that. But it gives us at least the criteria and the means and the mechanism to let things fall out easily. So I would suggest that becomes part of our next meeting, and then if you need to do the Q&A or would like to do the Q&A, because there are those kinds of things that have come up in your group, or let's again, take a few minutes to have that opportunity. But that would begin to drive the next meeting. And then I think at this point we probably do have the options, and I think then we probably discuss on how, if we can agree on a criteria and then agree on the definition of those criteria, then I think we can begin to lay that against the option.
Okay, Tor and then Molly.
Yeah, I just feel really strongly that we need to begin the next meeting with a scheduled time to discuss the recommendation that was made about do we need extra meetings? Because until we know that, then we don't have from Dorothy. Because until we know that, we don't, So I would like to talk about that at the top of the next meeting, for however long we need to talk about it. But that's just.
Well, I just wanted to say I am staying as open as I possibly can in this process, and I hope all of us will do the same. But I don't think I can't take this opportunity to be sitting in this room without saying we are in a rehab building that was deemed unusable. And I just thought, we ought to stop and look at what the space can do. We have technology. The budget was $4.6 million as compared to the $46 million that we're talking about. Just so everyone can, we have to compare and we have to look at all these things with an open mind. And I think we're meeting in that kind of a building that it's happened to. So.
Okay, and I didn't see, I think Mike had his part up.
So I think we need to be real careful about saying things like this building was deemed to be unusable. This building was never deemed to be unusable. It was deemed to be not useful as a school. And it's not currently being used as a school. And for $4.6 million, this could not have been turned into a school.
Okay, and Bruce and then Meg.
I'm just going to make, it's a comment on the meeting comment. I think this meeting feels as if we progressed much more than my experience at the other meetings. And I think that as we look at this at this point, I'm not clear that I'm in a position to want to have a discussion about additional meetings, because I'm telling you right now, there's no way, you're going to have to do a hell of a job to get me to hold up a green card to have additional meetings. I'm telling you. I mean, this is a lot of time we're already putting in. It's an incredible amount of information that we're being asked to absorb. And so to me, and at this point, if you look at where we're ending now, what we're saying is we'll have additional information next time, and we're starting to move toward a criteria and options and beginning to do that sort. That's pretty far down the road. And I, honestly, speaking for myself, I didn't think we would be at this point tonight. We are. So to open the next meeting discussing additional meetings before we see what we can accomplish is, to me, premature.
Meg.
I agree with that. And I'm getting uncomfortable because my own personal style is to delve into a lot of detail. And I don't feel at all ready. I mean, I feel this was a sandbox. We did play, and it went really well. And when we do it for real, it's not going to be anywhere near as easy. And I think at least some of us are going to need more time and information. And maybe, again, as I suggested last time, and it didn't go over well, some of us need to work more separately. Maybe the whole group doesn't need to meet, but some of us are going to need more time to work through all this than others.
Lauren.
Question for Joanne, clarification on, or a little more on the process that you were suggesting for next time.
It's called a valuing process.
Valuing. If we did that valuing process, about how long do you think that would take if we did it in the next meeting?
My experience in the past with large projects is that it usually takes a couple hours with a smaller committee than this. So it's, we normally have committees about half the size of this, and it usually takes a couple hours. Although I think we got pretty far with what we have here. Sometimes that couple-hour meeting is generating this list, so I think we have a really good start.
And another question I have is, does that process include any kind of process for weighting? Is weighting of the criteria a part of what you're describing? Or that's separate?
We could do it either way. I think we could see where things fall out, and then if we feel that there's a need to weight it later, then we could maybe think about it and follow up the next meeting with weightings or something like that. You know, how to weight them.
Do you think it would be possible to split this group into two parts and each part do it and then come back together?
I worry about that because I think this whole group was put together to get some very different opinions and ideas together, and I think separating them and then trying to make it mesh might be contradictory to that. So I see where you're going, but yeah, I think it'd be best to have it open.
Okay, so Tor had a question, then Jimmy. Question of clarification, Tor.
Yeah, just so the process sounds really, really interesting to me. And so I guess my question is do you envision us having more debate, as we've talked about the nature of these criteria before we do that process? Or do you do that process and then whatever the criteria you're left with, then you do that process on that?
Normally we talk about the criteria and what they mean before voting on them.
Okay, and was that a yellow card, Meg?
Yeah, pretty confused at this point, because I thought what you were suggesting was a weighting process.
It's a valuing process. So it talks about all of the criteria and kind of pulling to the top the more important ones. And you may combine some, you may talk about, you know, when things fall very low on the priority list, you might say, hey, you know, we're not even going to spend a ton of time dealing with those issues because they're so low on the list, but these other ones are very high. There could be others, like Mike was saying, that are, you know, these are givens and it has to happen, you know. So that would be something we would discuss beforehand. But and then the weighting could happen if there's concern about you know, something less critical being scored the same.
Okay. And Jimmy, you had a comment?
I have participated in those kind of very small group decision-making processes, the weighing or the valuing that way. And the small group, it's very effective, it works very well. But usually, the experience I've had with it is that we're not dealing with something like this. You're dealing with typically one issue that's maybe very few points, not something this major. The second comment I want to make is, if we start talking about extending meetings, I just lost my green card.
So without calling.
Are you illegal?
We cannot ask that question.
With a name like Applegate.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is, in terms of looking at the next meeting agenda, you know, 10 minutes with Bruce, with some written materials earlier, Paul and maybe Michelle and Mike in the hot seat answering questions. And Michelle, Mike. And you'll sit in the back, right, Paul? And so and I'll talk to you all about how much time you'd like that to happen, you think it might take. And then starting in with Joanne's process of valuing, and I will check with Joanne and find out what that means.
It sounded like we needed to articulate the criteria.
Yeah, and then the other thing is about articulating the criteria, getting these things set up. And I heard last time and also this time, Meg, that you think it might be helpful to have a subgroup of people that would work on those criteria. Is that what I'm hearing right? What? Yeah, okay. So I'm just checking with Megan to see if that's what. So what does the group think about having a subgroup working on the criteria and getting them to back to the group? Okay, wait. Okay, so I saw.
This is in favor.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to, not a call for consensus, comments or questions or whatever. So we have, Michelle, you have a question?
I guess I just want to clarify, is this to develop a more comprehensive list of criteria or to define the criteria?
Yes.
To me, it's actually consolidate duplication and to define. Define, and then the definitions would show you that there was duplication. So primarily to define.
So,
and streamline is really what I'm saying, because to me there's just too much overlap.
Okay. So, hold that thought, Jimmy. Oh, whoops, I lied. I'm sorry. Marlene has a question. Sorry.
So with that in defining, were we, and maybe we're planning that later, are we having somebody, I know that Darren was going to do something about safety. Are we going to have a presentation from OSPI or somebody about what safety?
If the group would find that helpful, either a presentation or written materials, Darren did indicate, even though he was not able to come, continue to come to these meetings, he was very happy to answer any questions or do whatever.
Because that would help define safety, I would think.
I think safety is the biggest one.
Okay, so, an answer to that question.
Well, are you mostly talking about, if you are talking about like an active shooter type of
I'm talking about designing the school, what best safety.
I might be able to find some, like a PowerPoint or article or something about that I could share, because we get trained on that every year at the university, and it's something in an hour they go through the same stuff every year.
PSD has something.
Randy Town.
Randy Town would be great.
Okay, so we'll explore that and see what that fits in terms of time frame. Okay, so safety.
Well, or maybe to send out via email for us to look at before we come to the meeting.
Okay, so written. So, okay, and we will get to you, Jimmy and Michelle. Tori, did you have a question, clarification?
Yes, it's a question for the group. Given my last not so successful foray, I will look before I leave. But the question is, and it goes with what Marlene just said, which is, does the group feel confident in the information we already have to debate or discuss clarification on the definition of anything under criterion, or if one of us has someone who we recognize, we believe the group would recognize as an expert in one of these issues, would they be welcome to come and give a 5-minute presentation? That's a question for the group. I'm not advocating one way or the other, except of course I have somebody in mind to come and speak on one of those criteria. But I'm not going to put it out there, Bruce, until I know that the group is.
As long as it fits in our Wednesday schedules between 5:30 and 8:30, I don't give a rip.
Okay, there's an answer. Jimmy, you had a comment.
A comment you made earlier, Linda, asking Michelle and Mike to give a comment at the next meeting. I thought they did an excellent presentation at the last meeting for several minutes. Why do they need to come and give a presentation again next week?
Okay, so that was okay, so that was kind of a question. Why was it a question?
Well, it was a comment and a question. I guess it ended up as a question.
Okay, and I'll just pretend it was a question. You have an answer, Mike.
I guess I didn't know that we were doing a presentation. I thought we were going to answer questions that people still had. I thought it was a Q&A session.
Question and answer, yeah. That was my understanding.
I withdraw my comment.
That was clarification, that's good. Okay, so, Michelle, thank you.
Well, I think I just, going back to if a small group is going to work on the definitions of the criteria, which I think is a fabulous use of somebody's time if they want to do that. I don't misunderstand that at all. I just, can that be something then that comes out so that we have an opportunity to review it before the meeting? Because I would imagine that although it would be a starting point, that people may want to fine tune that definition. I don't know if that's a comment process, whatever it is. That's my thought.
Okay, so you're hearing that, so you would like to have something written come out from that subgroup prior to the meeting so that people could have a conversation with us.
I think that would be an efficient use of time, and I thank anybody who wants to do that. That's awesome.
Yes, you had a red card for our process?
Well, the red card is, I don't know if it's really a legitimate red card, but I wish to point out that between our next meeting and the one after that, we're supposed to give a report to the school board. And we haven't got anything about that on the agenda, which to me, I would like to be able to give them more than a list of options and a list of criteria, whichever way it goes, which I think is all we're going to get to at this stage. And I just want to throw that into the mix.
So an item on the agenda about addressing the status report?
We can't just address it next time. We have to approve it next time.
There needs to be a
Well,
draft.
Yeah.
Would you hold up the card for me, please?
What color?
Green maybe, no, blue.
Okay, blue, then
Actually
Lauren
needs to be
comes.
a draft to discuss next time.
Okay, so we have a comment, and then Steve?
Just that having heard several people say that they do not want, pretty strongly don't want any additional meetings, then I feel like we do have to be really as efficient as possible, like rather than having people come and do presentations, that things be presented in writing, and as Michelle suggested, if as far, a few days in advance of the meeting so that people can read that, and because we will have to move fast if we are doing, and I'm not in disagreeing about sticking to our calendar. I would then argue for next time, as quickly as possible, finalizing the criteria, and maybe even higher on the agenda is plan what we're going to say in the status report, whatever that can be. It just has to be what we can make it.
But it's just a status report.
Right,
It's just-
but that's, but I agree that we should probably, if we could try to get that out of the way, maybe it would be good to have that first on the agenda. It's just a suggestion.
Okay. So we have 4 more minutes. Any more comments, questions? Meg, was that a comment?
Yeah, nothing personal, Bruce, but your write-up on the community center was already part of the background material. So that might be an example of where we don't need to take meeting time, except for questions as opposed to presentations.
So that's a question and answer.
Not her.
Good.
That's only because Cora's pushing you.
You talk to me then. You talk to me. We'll get it.
Okay, Joanne, you have a question.
Just because it's got a good haircut doesn't mean.
What I would love to see about the community center is preliminary cost information. And I know we talked about, something was mentioned about August, mid-August. That's really the key thing. I mean, the proposal pretty much talked about everything else.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the most helpful. The NAC that is going to come back and meet with the city's committee on the 22nd of this month. Their timeline is still, which would be a public meeting. It's 10 o'clock, August 22nd, if anybody wants to come here. I don't know where they're going to be in their process yet. I haven't seen a preliminary report, but they are, their proposal was to have us that report by the end of August.
Well, and if I could, I guess it's not just cost, it's feasibility, how feasible it is. The report, I don't know if they can give you anything like a preliminary draft report because our meeting's the 20th. And I think that's the key information. Is it feasible to even have one? How much would it cost? Can we share the land with the school district? Or does it have to be sold, in one parcel to, that kind of thing.
So I would be, given the transparency, which is good, I would be hesitant to take a preliminary report that has not been reviewed by either the committee of the city nor council and present it to this group as something that would potentially be, because it will then assume a life of truth which may not be accurate.
I missed the 3-minute warning, so this is like a 1.5-minute warning. Steve, did you still have a comment? Okay. You had another question.
Well, yes, then would it be better to hold off on the community center discussion until the meeting after the 20th when they have more information for us?
Okay, so the first one in September? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so yay, you guys, this was the best meeting. And there's even, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. It's hard. Yeah.
I wondered, when are we going to get estimates from the architects? Do we have a timeline, cost estimates? Yeah. Or options?
We don't yet have a list of options to ask.
Okay,
for.
okay.
That's my understanding, right?
Well,
Okay, you could give them a list.
No, I don't.
Okay, never mind.
Don't do that. I mean, one of your
I could
bosses.
agree on, I could agree on a short list, but I think the team needs to.
Okay, okay, so we'll put that off. Okay, great. I will be gone starting Saturday. I will be gone for a week in a place that does not have email access. Get your emails to me fast or get them to me late. And please, you all have everyone's email address, so they don't necessarily have to go through me. Just please do include me so I know what's going on. Okay, good job, everybody, and we have the best start for the next agenda.
With cards and name tags, please.
Thank you.
These are the lists of questions that came up last week.